you can't get anything done anymore. I used to draw for like 10 hours at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sit down for like 45 minutes. My shoulders hurt, my back hurts, I get hemorrhoids, all this stuff just like sitting. So I have just like, I do like a couple hours of drawing every day, and then I go do other stuff.
So aren't you, but now like that the distributors are done in comics, you think that's going to be, you think that's about to bring Spit and a Half distribution into the mainstream?
Well, I'm gonna be very diplomatic about how I'm on a Facebook group for, it's like all different, it's like cartoonists and publishers and stores and distributors to a certain extent. I don't know how many distributors there are. I think it's like me and JT Yost, but like it's very clear that all those stores, it's just they just care about superhero stuff, and it's like, I mean, I could talk about this for a long time. I feel bad because like I always talk about, well, I'm old enough that like when I started buying comics, I actually went to like the train station, and there was a spinner rack, and they like sold cigars and comics and gum, and you'd buy comics there. So like, later when the direct market started, it was it was just amazing to go into the store. It's like, oh my God, everything that's in here is comics. It was like mind blowing, And those first direct market shops were in like the 70s and early 80s and stuff. They were run by like comics guys who like were old enough that they remember, like they read, Batman and Spider-Man and stuff like that, but they also remember, like, grew up reading like Walt Disney comics, what I mean, and like all the different kind of comics that there used to be before superheroes took it over. And so you'd go in and there'd be every kind of comic in the world in this one shop. They had all the Marvel and DC and stuff, but they had all like huge selection of back issues, and then they had like Mickey Mouse comics and Donald Duck comics, and they had like James Bond comics from England, and they had like, back then too, there was like the black and white things, so there'd be like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and all like the black and white glut crap and stuff like that, which some of it was very cool, but it was like, if it was comics, they had it. And I feel like you could see it happen with each succeeding generation of comic book store owners. Each generation got more and more myopic of just like superheroes, So like that next generation, maybe, and they all grew up, we worked in the comic shops, right? Being mentored by the old guy. And so maybe they were more into superheroes or something, but they saw, well, got to have the Mickey Mouse stuff too, or whatever. But then like the people who like came out of that were like the next generation, they don't, it's sad to me. All they wanted was superhero stuff. And so it's like they put all their eggs in Batman's basket, Right. And it just got worse and worse over time until a lot of stores, I mean, the only time people ever go in there is on Wednesdays to pick up their like custom picked selections of that week's comics or something. And so I feel bad because it's like everything from the beginning till now, like set itself up to like being vulnerable to this kind of thing, and I love comic book stores, but they put all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
It's like, it's such a lost opportunity for everybody, because I feel like there were so many things that happened where like the stores started getting more and more focused just on superheroes, and then you have Diamond, who has a monopoly, and I mean we all remember that point where they were just like, I don't remember the exact number, but it's like, unless we get pre-sales of like 3,000 copies, we're not going to even carry your book. And instantly it was like, there's no more Crickets. There's no Gabrielle comics. There's no more Chester Brown comics, and like comic books, 32-page comic books or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was about, and then I think the alternative publishers were probably in a way almost happy to be rid of that, because it was like nobody's making money off a $4 comic book,
Yeah.
It's just like a pain in the ass.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, and they couldn't meet that diamond threshold, and they pulled out and focused on the bookstores. And so that was like the final nail in the coffin for alt comics in a comic book store. So like, instead of, even though nobody was making money off that $4 Chester Brown comic, people could go in and be like, oh, it would be this thing that was a low risk investment, like, $4, I'll check out this weird thing. And then you can have your whole life change. And then, on the other hand, then if you have like a $25 Chester Brown graphic novel, the stores the comic book shops, they're even willing to have that on their shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody comes in and goes, well, why should I buy it here when I can get it for like $12.95 on Amazon?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so alternative comics shifted from the pamphlet format to graphic novels, and the stores either didn't want to or ultimately couldn't keep up with that shift, because people don't go buy graphic novels in comic book stores when they could get it for half off online.
Yeah, it's
so
true.
It's like all these things came together, and it's just it kind of breaks my heart.
We were moving away from the superhero comic shop this whole time, the past 10 years probably. And like if you went into a comic book shop today, would they even have any alternative stuff? And if they did, would it be like displayed where, like, for example, there's a comic shop here that I go to, and anything that's like alternative is like in a box underneath. Like it's in a long box underneath something, so you have to like get down on your knees and like look through.
I always used to talk about, like, when I would travel around, in the 80s and 90s, I always had a box of King Cats in my trunk, and it was like you'd go to some new little town. Every town had a comic book store. You know what I mean? Every town like that was substantial enough to have a McDonald's had a comic book store.
Yeah.
And you drive around the town, it's before like GPS and stuff. You could sniff them out. You could almost be like, you'd see some like dingy strip mall up on the right. You'd be like, yes, there's going to be a comic book store. Yes, there it is. And you'd pull up and you'd go in and be like, hey, I make my own comics. And they'd like, sure, I'll take 2 copies or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you'd go back like a year later to collect your, $1.80. And they'd be like bagged next to the cherry Pop-Tarts behind the counter, like. Yeah. They have like the little backing board over the cover, so that like you can't actually see the image on the cover. You just see the title at the top.
Yeah.
Oh God. But
they did that one time when I had the first issue of Blammo out. I went around to all the shops in Denver to sell them, and I went to Mutiny bookstore before it was like the hit place that it is now. Like it was somebody other owner. I don't know. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
I sold a copy of Blammo to him. He took one copy. He put it in a bag and board and then put it underneath the glass. I was like, nobody's going to know what this is. And like, I'd go back there, like months later, it'd still be sitting there.
You're like, see this shitty looking comic by a teenager that's in a bag under glass that you have to like unlock the case to get it out? Could you pull that out so I could take a look at it?
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to.
Doesn't happen. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is sad because then, of course, there's less and less comic book stores now. But I mean, it's heartbreaking. But like, when I see a comic book store, I just feel sadness. I don't even want to go in anymore because I can be guaranteed that they don't have the kind of comics I like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true.
It's a drag.
Yeah. Unless it's like an old comic. Like I'll go into the comic shop just to dig through long boxes.
Yeah, I pretty much bought all the old comics. Like I collected all the like 70s Marvel horror and the monster comics and stuff like that. And
twice, didn't you?
Yeah, I collected them all. I bought them all when they were like 20 cents a piece.
How many do you have the same customers that you've had since the 90s?
To a certain extent, yeah. I mean, more with subscribers. Like I have some certain subscribers that started with. I think my oldest subscriber started with issue number. It would have been the first issue I went to Denver, so issue 35, I think it was. And it was one of my friends from DeKalb who like always used to get a King Cat from me. I was like, well, I'm moving, so you better get a subscription. And so he's had this subscription since 1992 or something. And whenever it comes due, I always write to him. I'm like, you still currently have the longest running continuous King Cat subscription. You wouldn't want to let that go now, would you? Yeah. So I always kind of twist his arm and he re-ups.
Yeah. How much is a subscription to King Cat?
$20.
Oh, come on, man. Really?
For 4 issues.
That's so cheap though, John.
Well, that's cover price, $5 now.
Yeah, but shipping?
Shipping's $1, printing's $1. Yeah. So I make $3 off each one, which, as you know, when you sell a $30 book, do you make $3 off your $30 book?
Yeah, right. I remember there was like an interview with you that Jason Heller actually did in Denver for The Onion, and there was a quote on it, like in big letters, that said, "A copy of King Cat is the same price as a bag of pretzels."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I've really come to accept, I think, my place in the world, that like, I do these kind of comics that are like a niche of a niche, and the people who like it really like it. And I'm super grateful for that. But, it's like, I just want to do what I do at this point without, worrying about it or putting too much pressure on it or expecting too much,
Right. Well, it's like that. I had like a letter from Seth that I published in the last issue of Blammo about how it's like you should never feel pressure to do something new with your comics because you feel like you're going to get trapped in like a specific thing. Like if you're a cartoonist and you even have a specific thing, like you should just stick to that and be grateful that you have that. And you shouldn't feel like you need to do something just to please your audience. You should just do whatever you want to do, even if it's like telling the same story over and over and over again. Sure.
I mean, and I always felt that way too. Like I there's certain issues of King Cat when I'm working on, I could just tell like, this is gonna be a good one because it's got like lots of exciting stories or funny stories or goofy drawings or something. And then there's other issues that are just like lists of things and stuff like that. And it's just like, well, I know probably less people are into this kind of thing than the other kind of thing, but this is what this next one is, I'm not going to force it to be something else. So it's just like, this one is this way and the next one maybe it'll be something else. But I always used to think that like, there's two kinds of artists. Like there's certain artists that like are really, they're always changing and adapting and like scratching things and starting over. And then there's other artists that like just have this certain fixation and they follow that like obsession all the way through their whole career or life or whatever. And so it does for those kind of artists, it's not so much, creating something brand new all the time or startling or eye-opening, but it's more about this like long haul process of like digesting your life as you move through it. And I definitely feel like that second kind. So I try not to worry about it.
So that's behind you. That's all the Spit and a Half distribution stuff?
No, that's here. I'll show you.
Yeah.
Can we go like this? So this is like I'm sitting at my like work desk where I have my laptop and envelopes and stuff like that. And then I have a work table and a bunch of total crap. And then there's a bunch of bookshelves. And there's my drawing table by the window. And so in here, it's mostly like work stuff. Like I do have some stock, like book stock, but it's mostly like envelopes and boxes and packing material and stuff because this is where I actually put the orders. And then there's like a big giant, like it's called trunk room, like a walk-in closet next to my office here that I have. It's all shelves with books.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where most of the stock is. And then I have back stock. I have a storage unit too now. So I have back stock at the storage unit.
Is it climate controlled?
It is climate controlled.
That's good.
I don't mess around.
Yeah.
When you know what they say, spit in half, the name means quality. There's no cutting corners with this business.
Do you have a mask, a medical mask for when you go outside?
I found some. I have 4 N95 masks in my trunk for like the past 10 years. I pulled one out because the last time I saw my mom, because she's going through cancer treatment and stuff, and I know just like I was just like, and she was yelling at me. She's like, "What are you wearing that thing for?" And because she's embarrassed, or like it bothers her. And I was just like, look, I couldn't live with myself, like thinking that I didn't do everything I could to prevent, like, because what if you have it and you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
So I wore the mask. I gave one to Stephanie the other day. So if you put this on YouTube, I might have to take them out of my trunk because people are going to try to break in and get them.
Yeah, no, they're really valuable. I'm shocked. Well, I guess I shouldn't be shocked that you have. It seems like you'd be the one person I would know.
Dan Stafford wrote to me. He's like, "How you doing, man?" I was like, "Fine. Why?" It's like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe all your OCD and stuff. Like, I mean, first of all, I'm not that OCD anymore, and something, I'm not that worried about getting sick and dying. I'm more worried about like spreading it to somebody else. And like, I mean, Jesus, half the people in my immediate family are like in the most highest risk groups, Yeah. So, that's the weird thing, but
we're all going to be.
It is weird when you go out and you can just feel the tension. Everybody walks, like we'll walk the dogs and like people will be at the other end of the block and they'll like see you coming and cross over, and cross over the street, which I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's understandable. It's just, it's real weird. We've been getting, there's not a lot of places to get groceries in our town. So we've been actually ordering from Walmart and then we'll go pick them up. And Stephanie's been picking them up usually, but the last time I went to do it, and they just had this one guy who was like going out. It was this huge line of cars waiting to get this stuff, and they bring out these like tote baskets full of groceries on a cart, and then they'll load them in your car, or whatever. I mean, these people had like 30. I mean, it must have been like $1,000 in groceries or whatever, and they just had this one guy working there, and you could just see like the massive amount of stress. Not just like trying to do this job and like it's like every time he came out there was like 3 more cars in line to get their groceries, but like I'm sure it's just like every person he walks into and like opens their trunk, he's like, am I going to get this thing now?
Right. Yeah.
It's terrible, and it's like I live in a fairly small town, so even being out, you can't really tell it's that much different, It's like every once in a while you can tell like there's just not that many people out or anything, but
well, I mean, down here in the South, everybody, they don't like the social distancing stuff. So if I'm walking around, we usually go for like 3 walks a day around our neighborhood, just to get some air and exercise. And everybody in our neighborhood is like out on their porch talking to each other, like there was like a bonfire happening on somebody's yard the other night.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, they cannot do it. They have to socialize with each other. It's just what they do,
Well, I mean, in a weird way, I think you're starting to see that where like in the cities, it's starting to kind of sort of hopefully plateau, but it's like all out in the boonies is where it's starting to like get worse now,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, man. So, but I'm trying to like have the brain space to just like get working. Like I said, I try to get up and work on King Cat for like 2 hours every morning first thing, and then like work on a couple hours of distro stuff, work on a couple of hours of just like housekeeping and things like that, and then Like I try to have more of a regular schedule, and it's, even just doing 2 hours of comics a day. Plus I draw so fast and stuff like that. Like I can get a lot done in 2 hours.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, how many pages can you get? I mean, is that just one page for 2 hours?
No, it depends like what I'm doing. If like lately I've been laying out the pages, so I have the story in my notebook and I'll pull out the blank sheet, and I'll like lay out the panels and stuff. And then usually nowadays I go in and I add the lettering. I figure out where the lettering is going to go, and then I'll do the drawings. Sometimes I'll pencil the drawings as they go along. And that takes a little bit longer because nowadays I don't measure anything, but I use like a ruler and a triangle. After like 30 years, I just got so sick of like drawing so crooked all the time, and I never notice it till it's printed. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, it's like totally like a trapezoid instead of a rectangle or whatever. And then, so now I eyeball it, but then I'll use like a triangle to make sure it's like at least reasonably straight or whatever. And that is, I don't know. So I do that, and then that takes a lot of energy. But like inking and stuff, it depends how much lettering there is, because that takes a lot more hand movements. But usually I remember like when I'd have huge projects where it's like I have to get 20 pages inked today or whatever. I had it down with like the average King Cat page takes about 20 minutes to ink. So it'd be like, if I have 10 pages times 20 minutes is, 200 minutes divided by 60 minutes for hours. And I try to figure out like how much work I could really reasonably get done. But now I just don't have the stamina at all. Like my eyes bug out. So I actually instead of I'm not wearing my glasses, because then if my glasses, like I can't see the computer, I have to take them off. And but now I use reading glasses when I'm drawing or inking, and it's just like, it was such a lifesaver when I realized that. So I just have like, it's like just like readers that you buy at Walgreens that are, I can't remember if they're 2 1/4 times enlargement or whatever, but it's just like, it actually looks like how it used to look when I was like 20 years old. I'm like, I remember what it used to look like when I could see the lines and stuff like that. And it's like kind of fun. For a while I was using a magnifying glass, but then I had to hold that in one hand and use the other hand to ink with. And so now I have the readers, and it's like, it's so fun because it's like, you can like see the tip of the pen so clear, and it's like leave this trail of ink. It's like real physically satisfying. Yeah. But then like just my back hurts, my neck hurts, my butt hurts. So So I try to do 2 hours at a time, and I get so much stuff done even if I could just get that much done in a day, and then work on the distro. So I do 2 hours of King Cat or whatever, like commission drawings or some kind of artwork, drawing. And then I do 2 hours on the distro, and then I do 2 hours of just like stuff around the house. And then I have 2 hours of flex time where like, I can go back and work on some more comics, or if I get like a ton of orders, I have extra time and put together some more orders or whatever. And then I try to be done like at 5 p.m. I go to the post office, mail everything. And then I like try to just like have a normal night, like eat dinner, watch some TV, read a book or whatever, and kind of relax. So
what movies do you watch?
I haven't. Well, what did I watch? Oh, my memory's so bad. The last thing I watched Parasite with Stephanie.
It's great, right? No, you didn't like it?
I did not like it. I thought it was good. I wasn't like my mind was blown by this movie or whatever. I have Criterion Channel, so like I watch a lot of those, and I can't remember what the most recent thing I watched. I finally watched Last Picture Show. It's Peter Bogdanovich or whatever. I think it was his first movie with Sybil Shepherd and a bunch of people who went on to be like have great careers, Randy Quaid and stuff like that. And it's about this little town in Texas at the end of the 50s, I think. And just like the kids there in the town, it's really good. And that was neat.
Last night I watched the Marx Brothers. Now I just forgot the title of the opera one.
Night at the Opera.
Yeah, Night at the Opera. I watched that last night.
Yeah, those are fantastic.
Yeah, it was real good.
Stephanie won't watch those with me because she thinks they're slapstick and she hates slapstick comedy. I'm like, no, slapstick is like the Three Stooges. Like, the Marx Brothers are like cerebral. You know what I mean? They'll be like sight gags and stuff, but it's like brain comedy. You know, it's like you feel smarter watching the Marx Brothers movies.
Yeah. The wit is so quick, like the things that Groucho's saying. You're like,
it's. But my favorite one of theirs is Horse Feathers, which I think is that the one where it's like a college football team. Yeah. That one's good. Yeah, when I was in grammar school at the Catholic school in Chicago, at the end of the year they would have everybody would go down into the gym and they'd pull out the bleachers, you sit, and they'd show a movie. One year it was Night at the Opera. And one year it was That Darn Cat.
Terrible movie.
Yeah, I can't remember. I watch, me that I like a lot of the Italian neorealism stuff, and so I can't remember the last couple ones I watched. But yeah, Criterion Channel is a lifesaver.
I gotta get it. I'm holding off on it. I don't know.
There's no reason not to.
Services, and I'm just like, man, am I going to another streaming service?
Yeah, but it's like the only one you need because it's all just good movies. There's no filler. I think it's only like $10 a month or something.
That's pretty good.
Plus they have you can watch all like the bonus features and stuff too. So you can see all the like behind the scenes and the documentaries and stuff like that.
But they only have the movies up for just a short while and then they take them down, right?
Well, they rotate, and I think there's probably some classics that you'll probably always be able to watch 400 blows on it, but then they do like they'll bring some stuff in, like they have a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily Criterion, like DVD releases or whatever, and they'll like every month they'll like focus on a different director and they'll show a bunch of films from that, or they'll have like themed things. Like a couple months ago it was 70s sci-fi, so it was like all Logan's Run and Soylent Green and all that great stuff, cool. And Omega Man, and so it's kind of neat.
Omega Man, he's like, there is no telephone ringing.
But yeah, I don't know. Lately I've been falling asleep so early because usually Stephanie will be watching TV and then she'll fall asleep around 8 or 8:30, and then she'll say, do you want to watch something? I'll be like, I just want to go to sleep.
Collection.
There's this Marvel comic that I wish they would collect. I mean, I'm sure that it like sold real bad. I think there were only like 9 or 10 issues of it, but it was from the 70s called War is Hell. And the theme of it was there's this like soldier who's like doomed, like he dies and then like comes back and has to fight in a different situation.
Oh, cool.
Some kind of like so he's always fighting in some different kind of situation, and it was kind of a cool thing. I only have a couple of them, and I started getting them because the first like couple issues they reprinted the old war comics from the 50s that otherwise were never reprinted. So that's like, it seems like it's, I don't have all the issues of it, but it'd be neat to see a collection of that and read them all together, kind of like this. It's like war comics, but a little bit more thoughtful. But
do you like war comics? Like, have you ever read The Losers?
Yeah. Well, I like anything Jack Kirby, and I love that Atlas stuff. And there's just Marvel has only ever released one, if you don't count like Sergeant Fury and stuff like that. But they put out in the like the Atlas series of Marvel Masterworks, like the red sleeved ones. They had one called Battlefield, I think. And I love that stuff. That's my favorite stuff. I it's like heresy, but I even like that stuff more than EC. The Atlas stuff from the 50s, like the pre-code stuff and even the post-code stuff. Like, I mean, I like the EC stuff. Atlas was just like, it was a little less gory and a little less grim, and in a way, like, they had all the different great cartoonists, but it almost felt a little more like cartoony versus illustration-y, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like just the comics drawing in those old Atlas issues is just so good. It's like my favorite kind of cartooning like that, you know, where it's just like it's just like juicy and kind of more cartoony than illustration-y, which is kind of what I think of with a lot of the EC stuff. But apparently, if the world doesn't end, I just heard that Marvel's putting out a new Jack Kirby omnibus that's going to be all his war comics and then all his romance comics.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like called Kirby's War and Women or something like that.
Like a giant, that'd be a huge book, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I can't remember how many pages they estimate it to be.
Those things are so... Dude, nobody's reading those though.
I read them, but it's painful. So like I'll read them in bed and just like prop them up on my knees, and I just read like one story a night. But it is hard. It is hard.
Yeah, I did that. I read Devil Dinosaur last week.
Well, that one's easy.
Yeah, I know, but it's funny because it's like Jack Kirby. You could tell he just kind of got bored with the dinosaurs fighting dinosaurs, and then all of a sudden introduces like an alien. It's like.
Yeah, I don't know the history of it, how much of that was him or if he was getting pressured by the editors or something.
I wonder. I'd like to know.
Those are so sad, all those 70s ones, because he's like going and going and going. It just seems like he gets to the 9th issue and they can it, you know? And then he's got to like wrap up the thing. It's just like this one-page thing at the end. I mean, like famously that OMAC, the last panel is just like, I'm gonna spoiler alert if you put this on YouTube. It's like it's just an atom bomb going off.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, well I guess that's the end of the series.
Yes.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Dude, the essays that he wrote at the end of Devil Dinosaur are hilarious because it's just like, who's to say that man didn't ride on that dinosaur?
That's right.
But he's like speaking to like his little kid audience, you know, who are like he's just like stoking their imaginations.
I was just talking to Stephanie about that because we were talking about superhero comics or something, and I was talking about how like Alan Moore pisses everybody off because like when he does an interview, it's just like, these are for like 12-year-old boys. Like they weren't designed to be read seriously by like 55-year-old guys, you know? And it's just, but you know, I love the stuff that is so off the wall that it's charming and it's fun. I mean, that's why I love Jack Kirby stuff. And I do think he's a great artist and I love his art, but it's almost like outsider art. You know what I mean? It's just like he had this like insane vision of comics in the world that he just like threw down on paper for decade after decade after decade, and it was so personal and idiosyncratic that it's hard to not get swept up in it, you know, and that kind of passion or whatever. But like, you know, once you get to just like the journeyman guys who are like doing a third-rate copy of Kirby or whatever, I just can't get into that stuff, you know. It's got to be weird enough that it like juices me, you know.
Yeah. Like OMAC is weird enough.
Sure. Right? I mean, like all of Jack Kirby stuff, or, you know, and like I said, I really love those like, you know, Tales to Astonish and stuff from the 50s, and those are the best.
Where it's just like guys who just came back from war.
Sure.
PTSD. They had to get married and settle down and have a family, and they're just out of their minds. And like these comics are just this, it's like filter for like all these horrors that they have in their head.
Yeah.
You know? It's
well,
really
and just like there were so many titles and stuff too, and these guys were just, And like in the best way, I don't even mean this as a criticism. They just like were throwing stuff at the wall.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, okay, whatever. I got a 5-page comic, and it's got to be about like a giant octopus. All right, here we go. And you can tell that they're making it up as, it's like they have the barest idea of what they're even doing.
Yeah.
And so it's like still really fresh and interesting because of that.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay.